I definitely would encourage churches, really, if you haven't formed a CDC, to form one, because all of these other sources of financing, like municipal money for affordable housing and community development, they're not giving that to a church, right? But they will give that to a faith-based CDC.
And you don't want them to give it to the church.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You
don't. Absolutely.
You don't.
Absolutely. Wait, you're talking about these acronyms, and everyone on the call who's listening to the webinar, our audience, they may not necessarily know what a CDC is or what it represents. What is that?
That's a Community Development Corporation, and essentially it is a designation for a community development organization, right? And you can get those approved by the federal government, 501c3. And in fact, I think especially denominational ones like Emory United Methodist Church, theirs is actually designated under their church structure, but it is recognized as a separate entity for the purposes, right, of receiving money. So I think based on the denomination, those things might be organized differently, but again, it is a separate arm than the church, which allows them to, again, secure public funding. But wait, yeah, Reverend Walls probably knows more about that part than I do.
I'm actually going to ask him a question, but why would the church, I'm just being devil's advocate here, why would the church ask for or even file for a CDC? Why would they do that?
So one of the designations that churches have is as a religious organization that doesn't have to file taxes and be amenable to the government in the same way. You start bringing other stuff into your church organization, you just became amenable to the government. So you want a separate entity that they're going to look into and make sure you're doing what you need to do, and you want to keep that separate. The other things have to do also with liabilities, and you want to keep your liabilities separate. You want to have a separate corporation for that and backstop it. So if something went wrong, and they don't go wrong this bad often, but if something went wrong and they tried to go after your assets, you have a separation between your church assets and your CDC assets. So you want that separation. If you're doing development and you have outside investors, they're going to require that anyway. So you won't have a problem there, but you probably want to do that anyway. Just as Dr. Merritt says, there are government entities, there are 501, it's not 501c3, sorry, nonprofit foundations who will not write the church a check. They will not. They will only do it to a 501c3 entity, which, by the way, a church can get. Again, strongly suggest you get it on your own CDC and keep that stuff separate. Keep those two things separate. Church business and community business are separate entities, obviously related. In terms of how the structure works, very quickly, you should get an attorney. Did I say you should get an attorney? You should get an attorney. I say you should get an attorney. Do not walk away and say Reverend Walls said. If you say Reverend Walls said, say Reverend Walls said, get an attorney.
Wait, I don't think they heard it. What did you say again?
Get an attorney. So CDCs are nonprofits, so they're not owned by anyone. It's a public corporation. A public benefit corporation. So you can set that up, and you can set it. The way we set up ours in Mount Vernon, New York, was we had bylaws that specify who could nominate. In our bylaws, only the pastor could nominate. Only the chair of the nonprofit could nominate. Who was the chair? By bylaws, it was the pastor. So you weren't going to lose control, because I've seen churches lose control of their nonprofit. So one church, hilarious story, very quick. One church did a development in its parking lot, built a building, had another started another nonprofit, lost control of that nonprofit, wound up paying rent to park in its own parking lot. Oh my God. Because they didn't have control. And so we made sure we didn't lose control. That will not happen. It's something like 65% of the board must be church members. We wanted to leave room to have outside folk, because you want other skill sets that you may or may not find inside your church. You want relationships that you will not find in your church. There are people who go to other churches and go to synagogues and go to mosques that you will want on your, but you want to make, we decided we wanted to make sure, though, the vast majority, the super majority was members of the church, but we wanted to leave room to bring on other skill sets.
Actually, I'm glad that Dr. Merritt brought up the CDC. I was
Yeah.
thinking about that at the same time, and you hopped in and talked about that. But it's very important. It also, as Reverend Wallace mentioned, helps you keep control of your church. But what you don't want to do is set up a project and then end up losing control. You know, that's how you end up losing your church property or your building. You know, just in general, you want to make sure you keep control of your church. And there are different ways to do projects. You know, I'm not going to get into everything here today, but I was talking with somebody actually earlier today about some property they own and what they want to do with their project. And, you know, you could potentially lease your land to someone. I mean, that's an option, or you could do a co-development project. I mean, there are different ways to do things. So don't get locked into one way per se. And, you know, I definitely agree with hiring an attorney to help you work through that. Get some other people that know the real estate business inside and out to help you make those correct decisions.